What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Deluxe Class and Nightbird. Now, as we check out the packaging, fantastic CG render up front. I thought her design in the movie was insane, and as we spin around here to the back of the box, the product shots aren't looking too bad, and the bio does read, Nightbird and the Terracons fight back the Autobots to steal the Transwarp Key. Now, she is technically the third and final core Terracon that we need to complete the trio. I've been super excited to check her out, so let's get cracking. So, here we have Studio Series Nightbird, and the figure is surprisingly pretty decent. In terms of detail, I definitely think is a marked improvement when in comparison to the mainline version, although both figures basically share the same engineering, so the articulation unfortunately is still compromised, and that is probably my biggest issue with this figure overall. But as we check out the details, the face sculpt is looking incredible. I mean, check out the mechanical paneling that we have surrounding the mouthpiece, the neck guard has been so nicely detailed, and there are even a pair of painted eyes underneath that visor, so that's such a sweet touch. I also like that this version's chest breaks apart to match the CGI design, and the samurai plating that you can see throughout the robot mode design is actually pretty impressive. I mean, personally, I love the way the sides of the vehicle become the hip skirts. That is a great reuse of what would otherwise be excess vehicle mode pieces just hanging off the back, and the serrated skirt looks sick. Check out the detailings that we have there for the torso, and the arm design also is super accurate to the movie, although unfortunately she does not include any arm blades, so instead for Studio Series they have sculpted them into the forearm, which I don't think looks the greatest, because in the movie they definitely do pop out and are way more prominent than what we're seeing here. But the leg design is near enough dead on to what we saw on screen. The shocks in the shins and the wheels that become the heels are super cool, and as we spin her around to the back, she does have a big ass backpack. But the reason this is now here is because unlike mainline, she now finally has the movie accurate wings. So whenever we would see Nightbird in Rise of the Beast, primarily she would be in flight, whether it be taking out Bumblebee or trying to take on RC, so these are a nice inclusion, but unfortunately this backpack is enormous. And to be fair, I don't so much mind this piece, it's more so this section which really doesn't have a place to tab in. And talking about tabbing in, the backpack sadly is only held together by two tiny little friction joints, and it takes next to nothing for this to detach, so when you are posing her 9 times out of 10 it can become so frustrating and definitely super fiddly. So I really wish maybe they had given us a kind of clicking system for this to permanently lock in. But in terms of our articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look up, it can look down, it can rotate left to right, which is actually excellent, especially for getting her into some of those in-flight poses. The shoulders can rotate all the way around, they can hinge out to the sides, we do get bicep rotation and elbow bend, but unfortunately no wrist rotation at all, which I think sucks, especially as that was something that was not present on the mainline version. And for Studio Series, I really think that's something they could have included, because there really is no reason why there could not have been a wrist joint there, and because she's basically a samurai slash ninja, that is definitely a point of articulation which I would have loved to have seen. But in terms of the waist joint, it can rotate left to right, although much like the mainline version, it is so hindered due to the backpack bumping into these hip skirts. So there are a lot of workarounds that you're going to have to go through in order to maximize these joints, which ultimately I do find to kind of become a little tedious. But the hips can kick forwards that far, they'll kick back to that far, so that's definitely a better range when in comparison to the mainline version. They'll also kick out to the sides. We do get a thigh swivel, although it's super stiff, and technically two joints here at the knee due to the way she transforms. So the knee articulation is actually superb, and so is the ankle pivot. I mean, check out how deep that can bend. That is sick. So all of the points of articulation are definitely here, but again, it's those workarounds that you're going to have to go through, which ultimately I personally find to come across as being slightly annoying. Now, as we check out her accessories, or I guess I should say accessory, as she only includes one katana blade. Now, in the movie, I'm almost certain that she had two on her at all time, and it would surely just make sense to include two. But in terms of detail, very sharp. I mean, definitely a lot more accurate again when in comparison to the mainline release. She does look pretty sick whilst wielding it, although due to the lack of any wrist articulation, the posability unfortunately is a little limited. But I do really like the way it stores on the sides of the hip skirts, and there are two slots, so it does make me wonder that maybe initially they had originally planned to include two katanas here with Nightbird, and when we check her out in vehicle mode, the vehicle mode storage does allow for two swords as well, so maybe it was something that was cut at last minute. But yeah, that is some insanely cool weapon storage. I mean, check out the way she has that slung on her hip blade, ready to go in battle alongside the Terracons. Now as we check out a few comparisons, on the left hand side we have the Studio Series Nightbird compared to the right hand side, which is the original mainline Deluxe. Now in terms of accuracy and detailing, there is a night and day difference because of course the Studio Series version is way more spot on to how she did appear in the movie, although the skeleton that both of these figures have are basically the same. So the articulation and the engineering that we had here for mainline is almost identical here for Studio Series, and as we spin them here to the sides, because the Studio Series version now has the jetpack, it does just make the backpack way bigger, meaning that any of the limitations that you had seen here with mainline are slightly more frustrating to kind of work around here with Studio Series. So if you already own the mainline version, then personally I would recommend to just stick with this figure because there really isn't much of an upgrade in terms of how both figures work. If you found that this was super limited in terms of posing, then unfortunately that is still the same issue here with Studio Series. But if you are like myself and you want the most accurate versions of these characters to add to your collections, then yes, Studio Series definitely takes the win. And as we fire through a few quick fire comparisons, first up we have Core Class Frieza and RC, and I always found it to be kind of funny how Nightbird had it in for RC in that movie. She yeeted her in the final battle, she took her clean out during the museum fight. These two definitely had some issues, and it's a shame that it ultimately wasn't RC that took out Nightbird, as I think that definitely would have been some pretty good revenge. Deluxe Class Mirage and Deluxe Class Bumblebee, and honestly I'm not too sure between Mirage and Nightbird who is the weakest Rise of the Beast Deluxe that we've so far seen, because unfortunately both of them have quite a few limitations in terms of their robot mode designs. You guys be sure to sound off down below and let me know who you think is the weakest, but I have come to kick ass. Voyager Class Chisel and Rhinox, and despite her being significantly smaller than both of these two Maximals, did you guys catch that scene where she single-handedly took both of these Maximals out? So Nightbird definitely has some beef with both Autobots and Maximals, and these Terracons were just built differently in the Rise of the Beast movie. It's kind of a shame that none of them will be able to stick around for the next live action film. Here's Leader Class Optimus Primal and the buzzworthy Bumblebee Optimus Prime. And for the money shot, we have Voyager Battle Trap, Leader Class Scourge, and Deluxe Class Nightbird. So the Terracon trio is now finally complete, and these guys are looking sick. Really like the way these look as a set. They were fantastic villains in the movie, and the scaling between all three of these surprisingly appears to be pretty dead on to what we saw in the film. But with that being said, here is Nightbird alongside the Deluxe Class Air Razor, and although she is accurate in terms of her scale, I definitely think a design like this would have benefited from being as large as Air Razor, because there are just so many panels which have to move in a small confined space, which is ultimately why she does become so tedious and frustrating to articulate. But yeah, detail wise, she is definitely on point. So, with the robot mode completely wrapped, now let's terrorize her into her vehicle mode, and unfortunately this is really where you're going to see the high fiddle factor come into play. So, first of all, take these shoulder pads and snap these here into place. Do the same here for this side. We can then come down to the front part of the foot and snap this piece in also. Just like this. We can now spin around here to the side. Now personally I would recommend to take the hip joints and just bring these forwards, as we're actually going to rotate the backpack around and the clearance is minimal, so just move these here out of the way. We can then take this section, extend this forwards, and then slide this piece here down, and then when it comes to the wings, these are actually going to detach away from the backpack like that. Once you've disengaged this, we can then straighten out the spoiler part, and then we're going to take these wings, hinge these here back up just like this, and they'll actually rotate downwards into this position. Now we can take the backpack, pull it outwards, and then shift it up and begin rotating this here all the way around just like this. Once that's done, now is where you can take these hips and bring them back down, as we're going to come here to the chest unit. So these actually have two hinge joints. We're going to take these and slide these sections here outwards and do the exact same here for this side. So slide that outwards. With that complete, hopefully it should have freed the chest piece away from the torso, so we can lift this here up and over, and the backpack should now lock into what will become the front part of the vehicle mode. So make sure all of that's snapped in. The next step would be to then grab a hold of these hip skirts, and much like the mainline version, they do slightly shift outwards just like this. So now they are freed and you can rotate them around. Do the same here for this side. So slide this piece here out. And then as we take a look at the inside of the bicep, there is a tiny little circular port that is actually going to peg into that section. So rotate here and then snap that section into place until it actually clicks. Do the same here for this side. So bring this down, snap that section into place also. Now we can come here to the thighs, rotate these so the back is now facing the front. and do the same here for this side. And then personally, I would recommend to take this part of the hip skirt and hinge it outwards, just so you guys can better see just exactly what's about to go on. So do the same here for this side. The next step would be to then take this hip skirt and rotate this here all the way down just like that. We can now take what originally was the ankle pivot, hinge this piece here in all the way, and then begin utilizing those knee joints so that we can perfectly line up what originally was the foot to this hip skirt piece. So snap that into place, come around here to this side and do the same. So bend here at the ankle pivot, take this part of the hip skirt, rotate this down, and then use those knee joints so that this tab can snap very securely into place. Now is where we can bring these hips here back up, and there are now two tiny little slots in the knee joints. These are going to slide into these little transparent tabs, so slide those in there and do the same here for this side. And then the next step would be to take these tabs and peg them into those slots, and then this massive tab is going to slide into that slot. So first of all, make sure you are lining up the ones with the arms, and then we can shoot this one here in the front. Do the exact same here for this side, so line that up perfectly, and then shoot the one right into the very front. Now we can take the entire backpack, bring this here up and over, and these tabs are going to slide into these slots here. So bring these down and basically just close all of this here up, snap all of that into place, and then for a finishing touch on the underside, we have two slots here and here. You can use either of these for the weapon storage. So there is a tiny little tab that you'll basically just want to line up and slide that into place. And bang! Here we have Nightbird fully transformed into her officially licensed Nissan Skyline GTR, and this thing is looking sharp. So as we check out the details, super sick Terracon insignia up front, much like the Porsche that we saw for Mirage. This thing literally looks exactly how it did in the movie, and I'm not sure about yourselves, but I think I was more excited to see the Skyline in the film than I actually was for the Nightbird character, because this is just such an awesome vehicle, and I think they've done an amazing job replicating it as a deluxe class. I mean, it is a little distracting to see the high gloss up front than as opposed to the matte plastic, but this is so they can capture the translucent headlights, so that's pretty awesome. And as we flip her here to the underside, as I mentioned previously, I really think originally this figure was meant to include two katanas, because there are two specific slots for weapon storage, but check out this detail that you don't even see in the robot mode due to the chest unit covering it up. So yeah, all round this thing looks sweet, and much like Mirage, all four wheels are pinned on, so she has no issues in chasing down the Autobots and rolling out into battle alongside the rest of the Terracons. Now as we check out a few comparisons in vehicle modes, on the left hand side we have Studio Series Nightbird compared to the right, which is the mainline Deluxe. Now this version was never officially licensed, but despite that I still think they did a decent job in capturing her look from the movie. But because the Studio Series version does have the official license, of course the details are just on point, and I really think the fact that this is officially licensed is what ultimately is going to sell it the most to collectors, because to have an officially licensed Nissan Skyline GTR in the Studio Series line is just incredible. So in vehicle mode there is a clear winner, and it definitely is the SS version. And as we whack out the Studio Series Mirage, which also was an officially licensed Porsche, I am so glad that both of these vehicles are dead on to what we saw in the film, because the second that I saw both of these cars on set, I was hoping that Hasbro were going to be able to obtain the license for each of them, as their vehicles were by far the best that we saw in that Transformers Rise to the Beast movie. And as a Studio Series pairing, I think they are some of the best Studio Series vehicles that we've so far seen. Here is how she sizes up alongside the Rise of the Beast Bumblebee, so pretty decent scale. I definitely think this matches what we saw in the movie. Here's the Voyager class buzzworthy Bumblebee Optimus Prime, so hands down Nightbird is definitely a vastly superior vehicle when in comparison to Prime, because the whole rear of the truck unfortunately massively let this guy down, but scale wise I think they match up pretty well. And here is how she sizes up alongside Battle Trap, and I loved it when these two kind of paired up to take on RC and Wheeljack in their vehicle forms. It was super sick to see them kind of help each other out in their alt modes, because prior to Rise of the Beasts, unfortunately with the exception of Dark of the Moon, that's something that we don't really tend to see. But yeah, I think these two look absolutely fantastic alongside one another. And here is how she pairs alongside Scourge. So much like Battle Trap, definitely pretty dead onto the movie. It is so sick to now have all three of the main core Terracons that were in Rise of the Beasts, and their vehicle modes for the most part are looking pretty terrific. And for that Terracon money shot, here we have all three grouped together, and I've tried my best to kind of replicate the very first official image that was released for these Terracons, but yeah, these three look absolutely incredible as a pairing in robot mode, and personally I feel look just as great in their vehicle modes. Now, as we check out her reverse transformation, the first step would be to flip here to the underside and completely remove the katana accessory. We can then spin around here to the back and begin taking the rear spoiler and detaching it away from the rear fenders. So completely lift this section here all the way up and over. We can then spin around here to the front, take these sections here and disengage those away from the front part of the vehicle and hinge those down. Do the exact same here for this side. So pull this piece here out and bring it down. What I would then recommend to do would be to detach the knees away from those transparent pegs. So now we can use the hip joints to slide these sections down and do the exact same here for this side. You'll then want to split this piece directly down the middle, so hinge this section here up and then take what were originally her ankle tilts and hinge these out. We can then take the front part of the toe and extend this piece here forwards and completely fold out all of the knee joints. The next step would be to then flip her around to the front and rotate at the thigh so the back is now facing the front. We can then come up here to this hip skirt, rotate this section here around, compress this piece here down and snap this section into place and do the exact same on the opposite side. Bang! Once that's complete, we can now come here to the forearms, slide these pieces here forwards, and then hinge these sections here out to the sides. So do the same here for this side, put it forwards and angle it here out to the side. We can then flip up to the top and detach where the Terracon insignia is away from the front headlights. Hopefully that should then allow us to take the entire chest piece, bring this down until it does snap into place. Now we can take these headlights and begin compressing the chest to form its robot mode position. So do the same here for this side. Hinge these pieces here in until they click into place. We can now fold the shoulders down and take the tiny little shoulder pads and flare these pieces here upwards. The next step would be to come around here to the back, take the backpack, hinge this section down and then rotate here all the way around just like this. Now these tiny little transparent pegs, as I mentioned previously, do kind of rest into these slots, so I would definitely recommend to do that for now. We can then take this section, compress this here all the way up and then fold this tiny piece here down. And then in terms of the jetpack, you're going to want to flip this here forwards, take the spoiler part, hinge this up, and as you can see there is a little slot there that this tab should peg into. So take the wings and begin snapping those into place. We can then take these and slide these here out to the sides, and there is Nightbird fully transformed back into her robot mode. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studios series Deluxe Class Nightbird. Overall, it's definitely a really solid standalone figure. Detail-wise, especially when it comes to that officially licensed Nissan, it is a marked improvement when in comparison to the mainline version. Although, if you already own that original release and aren't too fussed on movie accuracy, then I wouldn't really recommend this to you, because the articulation is basically the same as the mainline version. So, if you had any issues with the way that figure articulated, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to experience the same here with this one, as the engineering really hasn't changed at all, and if anything, due to her now having the wings and a bigger backpack, the articulation is even more hindered. So she's not really fun to play around with, she's not even really fun to transform, as I said, she's quite small and there is a lot going on in terms of the design, so just moving some of the panels around can become quite tedious. But the vehicle mode does look awesome, it's super sick to see an officially licensed Nissan. So at the end of the day, I really think it's just going to come down to personal preference. If you're super fussed about movie accuracy, then definitely pick this up, but don't be expecting a major improvement in the articulation department when in comparison to that mainline version. I would love to get your thoughts on this figure down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? Do you think that Hasbro did a decent job in translating Nightbird from live action into action figure form? And until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.